Did you know that there are regions of Croatia, Slovenia, and France which grow both Pinot Noir and Chardonnay on the same latitude? So Plešovice in Croatia and Burgundy and also in Slovenia. And have you ever been to a tasting where you can compare all those three Pinot Noirs, find out the differences, what makes each different one tick? Have you ever wondered which was the right wine glass for you? You obviously have white wine, red wine, but there are so many different types of specialties in the wine industry. And if you'd like to know a little bit more about that, we have quite an interesting guest a bit later on. I'm talking to you today from the island of Hvar, which is probably the most interesting wine island in Croatia. Back in the 19th century, there were about 5,700 hectares of wine were under cultivation here. And today there's only 280 hectares, about 5%, due to the phylloxera and the Austro-Hungarian wine tax in the 19th century. But what you have here is a really quite incredible tourist island with a bunch of microclimates and also at least 7 indigenous varieties that only grow on the island of Hvar. And since the end of socialism in the 1990s, there have been a lot of small independent growers that have started up their own vineyards and wineries, and they've all been experimenting with local grapes, some with international grapes, and with some quite spectacular results. Indeed, so interesting was Hvar that the first ever master of wine to make wine in Croatia, Joe Ahern, moved from the UK back in 2014 with the slogan, grapes from Hvar, hands from London. And she produced some sensational wines which were sold in the restaurants of Tokyo, Kyoto, and Melbourne and Sydney, for example. And so when you come to the island, and especially if you're in Hvar town, you can go and visit some of the vineyards. And I highly recommend you do that. There are some really interesting experiences. Andro Tomic has his Romanesque tasting facilities in Jelsa. Ivo Dobokovic has a very, very interesting candlelit wine tasting with he's the leading boutique winemaker in Croatia, so they say. Zlatan Otok has a tasting facility under the sea, and also you can go tasting in a cave. But if time is against you, and if you'd like to sit and really learn a lot more about not only the wines of Hvar, but also Croatia and some international varieties, for the 2024 season and beyond, there is a very, very exciting new addition to the scene. She's called Sabina. She's a sommelier from Slovenia. And I met her about 3 or 4 days ago in the restaurant Passarola, which is where I am now, where she's working this summer doing some very guided tastings. And I have to say, not only was I blown away by Sabina's knowledge of the wines of Croatia and of the island particularly, but also the relationships that she's built up with some of the winemakers. So much so, in fact, that she actually has some very, very rare bottles that I'd never even heard of for tasting in a facility here at Passarola. To give you an example for somebody who's a wine connoisseur from Croatia, she pulled out a little bottle for me the other night, which really blew me away. There is a really good winemaker called Tonči Marian in Pitva, in the center of the island. And I've tried a lot of his wines, and she brought this, she said, try this. And it was a blend of Prč, which is a grape variety from the island which grows near Sučuraj, and Drk, which is the indigenous wine from Lumbarda on Korčula. And I'd always thought, or I've been told, that it only grows in Lumbarda because of the sandy soil. And here was Sabina saying, no, grows on Hvar. First time in my life I'd ever heard that. I lived here for 13 years. I wrote a guidebook including wines, and I had no idea. And she said, before you taste it, let me get some rojada from the kitchen here at Passarola. We had it together. It was almost like a chablis. It was like one of the nicest like food and wine combinations I've tried. And the more I talked to Sabina, the more I learned about the intricacies of Croatian wine and those bottles that you probably can't find anywhere else. And not only does she have the bottles for you to taste, she's an expert at explaining it with wit and humor. And we've had a couple of very, very nice social evenings where my knowledge of wine has been enhanced incredibly. Now, you might think coming to Passarola, one of the luxury fine dining restaurants in Hvar town, where although they don't publicize it, you know, we've had people like Beyonce and Novak Djokovic will come for dinner here, that kind of stuff. So it's a very, very high level of clientele and celebrity. You might think it's going to be incredibly expensive. And this is the thing that really, really blew me away about Sabina is she has a range of tastings for groups, and you get a plate of cheese, as you can see here. And the first tasting, the cheapest tasting with 3 different wines, expertly introduced by her to the group, is just €25 a person, which honestly, when everyone complaining about Hvar prices, to get that level of quality, great wine tasting, and that knowledge is pretty unbelievable value as far as I'm concerned. And the nice thing is you can come, if you're in Hvar town, where most of the tourists are, here you come, and here is a wine expert in beautiful surroundings here in Passarola, and you get this incredible knowledge. And then from there, you get also an explanation of all the other wines that are around. This restaurant, and Sabina has up to 200 labels by the glass. So if you find something that you're talking to her about and she's like, oh, I'd like to try that, that's also a possibility as well. So it really is, if you're a wine connoisseur, come to Croatia. This is the land where the original Zinfandel comes from, Selina Kaštelanski from near Split Airport. And it also has 130 indigenous grape varieties. And someone like Sabina has probably intimate knowledge of all 130. For winemakers that are used to the more generic types of Zinfandel, Chardonnay, Merlot, Croatia is an absolute gem in terms of discovery because there are so many tastes and flavors here that you can't get anywhere else. And when you have an expert like Sabina to guide you through all those things, it can be an incredible thing.
So hello, my name is Sabina. I'm originally from Slovenia, from Ljubljana, but I live in Hvar 10 years now, where I create my family here and so on. I make school in France, the best one in the world, and I'm a professional sommelier, and I work now in this restaurant, luxury restaurant Passarola in the Hvar town. So I want to invite you to Passarola to make a little wine tour, which is a little bit special. So my slogan of the wine tasting is, if you want to try different wines in one place, you come to me. And I have a lot of labels of wine. I'm a really wine lover. This is a passion of mine. And I can teach you everything about the wine, the Croatian wine, the international wines, and of course the wine glasses and everything which is important if you have a wine at home. So my tasting starts with 25 euros. You can get for this money 3 glasses of wine with a cheese, with domestic olives, the domestic olive oil, and the homemade bread from our chef, Marco. So, and you can go up with the prices like 3 glasses, 4, 5 glasses. And we have on the end the degustation for 60 euros, which include everything that I told now. And of course, also the biodynamic salamas, BioSync from Slovenia, which you get only in the Michelin restaurants. So it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more dramatic because in this salamas goes also the macerated wine. So orange wines, which I have a lot also here in the restaurant.
One of the things I've always wondered is how some of these restaurants are able to offer so many different types of wine by the glass. And if you come to Passarola, there are 200 bottles by the glass. And sitting with Sabina, she explained to me how it all works. She has this wonderful device called Korovin, which is an innovation where you can actually take out just enough for a glass and then have the bottle closed, hermetically sealed, and you can have the rest of the bottle next week, next month, even next year. And I'll leave it to Sabina to actually explain how it all works when you go to her tasting. But it's really quite incredible technology and gives you the option then to really try a number of wines. And so that's it. For me, it was a really, really interesting experience. She's a very, very charismatic person, very, very fun to be with. The wines are excellent. And if you'd like to learn more and book a tasting, you can find the contact details at the end of this video. Highly recommended.